Thunder rolled over the town and rattled the thin glass in the front window. The power flickered once, twice. The clock on the stove blinked 0000. In that stuttering dark, someone pounded on the door, a hard 3-beat knock like a fist of iron. The house seemed to lean toward the sound. He stood on the porch with rain running from the point of his chin down to the tip of his boot. He was tall but not in a graceful way. His shoulders looked built for armor, not coats. His eyes jumped from the street to the window to the roof and back to me as if the sky itself held a sniper. He said 4 words that did not belong together: I am an alien. I almost closed the door right there, but his left hand held the edge and I felt the weight of it. He was strong in the way that makes your bones remember old injuries. He did not push, he just breathed steady until I met his eyes. They were gray and crowded with things that did not fit into ordinary days. The storm made a river of the steps behind him. He shivered without shame and said, "Please, I do not have long." "What do you want?" I asked. He nodded at the hallway behind me. "Not safe to speak here. The signal listens," he said. Signal, like it was a person and a weapon at the same time. I told him I had no taste for jokes. He lifted the edge of his shirt and showed me a wound over the ribs. It was not a wound, I knew. No cut, no stitches. The skin there seemed thinned by fire, and under it something pulsed slow and bright like a heart made of melted wire. "It is tracking me," he said, "and it will find you too because you opened the door." I let him in. Maybe it was the cold shaking off his coat onto my floor. Maybe it was the way the house groaned when the wind pushed at it like a living thing. Maybe it was the small sound he made when he lowered himself onto the chair, a sound old men make in church when they kneel. I locked the door behind us. He flinched when the bolt slid home as if metal had memories. He told me his name, but it did not sit right in my ear. It slid off like water. I called him the stranger, and he did not argue. The kitchen smelled like damp wool and burned dust from the heater. The clock still blinked zeros. I made tea because I did not know what else to do. He did not drink it. He held the cup to his face for the steam like someone who missed the weather where he came from. "You said alien," I said. "Say the rest." He watched the window while he spoke. It was a story told to the glass years ago. He said a signal crossed the high sky, a tight thin thread moving faster than thought. It was not meant for us, but it touched us anyway. The ones who heard it changed. A mark grew where the signal brushed bone. A net was thrown. A hunt began. He said he had followed the signal across deserts where the sand turned to mirror under it, across seas where the wake behind his ship boiled with lights no one could explain, across cities where towers blinked in patterns that matched his dreams. He said there was a thing behind the signal, a collector, a harvester. He said it had many shapes and one purpose. He said it was nearby. I wanted him to be a liar. I wanted that with the dumb hunger of a child who cannot stand to see a parent cry. But the radio on the shelf cracked to life all by itself. The dial spun and landed on a voice that was not a language. It sounded like broken glass poured back into a bottle. He touched the wound at his side and the voice rose like it could hear him listening. "Enough," I said. My throat felt raw. He nodded as if I had passed a test. He reached for my wrist. "Let me show you," he said. I pulled back, but he was faster. He did not hurt me. He only turned my hand over, palm up. His fingers were dry and very warm. He traced the thin veins under the skin with the back of a knuckle and stopped at the soft place below the thumb. There it started there with a heat like a match. He did not move. His eyes did not move. I watched a faint shape form under my skin the size of a coin. The shape glowed the way the edge of a storm cloud glows when the sun slips behind it, a ring of light, a simple little circle, and yet my whole body leaned away from it. It felt like a secret I had always had and only now remembered. "No," I said. The word broke out of me, strange and small. The stranger let go and the glow faded, but it did not vanish. It lay there like a coal under ash. He said, "It chooses quickly once you open the door. I am sorry." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to throw him back into the rain, but the house creaked again, and in the pause after the sound came another, the thin metallic breath of something at the edge of hearing. It rose from under the floor or above the ceiling, or both. The lights went out. The dark came down clean and complete. The radio hissed and then spoke in a voice I knew too well. My own. I stepped back and hit the counter. The mug cracked on the tile. The stranger stood very still and then moved to the door. He put his ear to the wood as if it could tell him a story. The breath on the other side matched the slow rise and fall of my chest. The voice from the radio said my name 3 times with care, like someone learning how to pray. The stranger lifted the chain and slid the bolt with the speed of a man who has practiced doing dangerous things. He looked at me once and I saw fear and also a strange tender pride. "Open now," he said, "or it will open for us." He pulled the door inward and the storm rushed in, and there in the rain on my steps stood a shape that wore my face and smiled with my mouth. Morning came slow and pale, like the world itself was unsure if it wanted to wake up. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a silence that pressed against the windows. The stranger, he was still there, sitting in the same chair as last night, his hands folded, eyes closed but not sleeping. I could tell by the tightness in his shoulders that his mind was still running, still fighting something invisible. The mark on my wrist was faint now, but it pulsed if I looked too long. It was not a bruise or burn, it was light. Dim, but alive. I covered it with my sleeve, afraid to see it, afraid someone else might. "What is it?" I finally asked. My voice felt too small for the question. He opened his eyes and for the first time, they seemed almost human. Tired, frightened, yet carrying something ancient behind the fear. "A tracker," he said. "But also a bond. It means the signal has recognized you. It knows your pattern now." "Signal?" I echoed. He nodded. "A frequency older than your stars. It hunts the sound of thought." The kettle screamed before I could answer, sharp and human and welcome. I poured him another cup of tea. He didn't drink it, just stared into the steam like it might show him a way out. I needed air. Outside, the sky was a dull metal color, the kind that makes everything look flat and wrong. A delivery truck rolled by, splashing through puddles. Across the street, Mrs. Lawley was watering her flowers like it was any other morning. The world was pretending to be normal, but under my skin, that faint light was whispering that it wasn't. When I came back inside, the stranger was standing now, one hand pressed against the radio. It was on again, though I hadn't touched it. A static hum filled the kitchen, but it wasn't random. There was rhythm in it. A pattern. Like a heartbeat or code. He looked at me. "It's close." "What's close?" "The collector," he said. "The one I was sent to bring here." "You brought it?" My voice cracked. "You mean this thing, it followed you?" "I thought I could destroy it." His tone was almost a whisper, but it carried like thunder in that small kitchen. "But you can't kill a signal. You can only redirect it. I tried to hide it in a place it wouldn't survive, in you." My stomach dropped. "In me?" He didn't answer. He just reached into his coat and pulled out a small black device no larger than a lighter. It had a glass surface and lines etched across it like a circuit board drawn by hand. He placed it on the table between us. "This was my beacon," he said. "It called me home once. Now it calls them." Before I could ask who those, the device flickered to life. A thin blue glow traced the lines. Then the radio's static changed, sharp and urgent, like a language rearranging itself into words. The stranger's face hardened. "They know you now," he said. "Who knows me?" He turned toward the window. "The ones that came after me. They don't need eyes or ships. They ride the frequency. They'll come through anything that carries a signal, light, sound, waves, reflection." I wanted to laugh, to call him insane, but the lights above us dimmed, just a flicker, but enough to make my skin crawl. My phone on the counter buzzed even though I'd turned it off. The mark on my wrist pulsed again, brighter this time, syncing with the vibration. "What's happening?" "They're testing the link," he said. "They want to see if you'll answer." "I'm not answering anything." "You already did when you opened the door." His calmness made it worse. I wanted to shake him, scream, run, anything to feel human again. Instead, I found myself whispering, "Why me?" He looked away. "Because I failed to keep you out of it." The air grew heavy, like the room had filled with invisible water. Every sound stretched thin, the ticking clock, the humming fridge, the beat of my heart. Then, from the far end of the house, a soft, slow tapping. Not the storm. Not footsteps. Something else. We both froze. The tapping moved along the wall, steady and searching. The stranger grabbed the beacon from the table and slipped it into his pocket. "We have to go," he said. "To where?" "Anywhere away from reflection. Away from metal. Away from sound." I grabbed my jacket, my keys, my fear. But before we reached the door, the tapping stopped, and the silence that followed was worse. I could feel the air vibrating, not outside but inside the house, like a whisper trying to form words in my ear. The radio popped, and for a moment, a voice spoke through it, my own again. Only this time, it said something different. "Don't trust him." I turned, and the stranger's expression shifted, not surprise, not guilt, just a deep, exhausted sorrow. "It's learning fast," he said. "It's using your voice now." I stepped back. "How do I know you're not lying?" How do I know you're not the thing? He didn't move closer. He just said, "You don't. That's how it wins." Before I could respond, the lights went out completely. The only thing left glowing was the mark on my wrist, and the same glow, stronger, running like fire beneath his skin. For one breathless second, the two lights pulsed together, mine and his, beating the same rhythm. Then, outside the window, something tall and silent moved past, its shadow sliding across the wall like a second night. He turned to me. "If it saw us, we have minutes." I could barely speak. "What do we do?" His hand found the door handle. "We run." And before I could think, before I could decide if I trusted him or not, he pulled the door open, and the world outside wasn't morning anymore. It was lit in cold blue light, like a second dawn from a sky that didn't belong to Earth. The world outside looked drained of color. The storm clouds had broken apart, leaving behind a light that wasn't sunlight. It glowed from somewhere higher, colder, a pale blue that shimmered on every surface like the world had been wrapped in frost. They ran. Through puddles that glowed faintly, down the street where sound seemed swallowed by the air. The stranger's stride was long and certain. Mine stumbled, half pulled by his grip, half pushed by fear. We didn't stop until the houses thinned and the town fell behind us, shrinking into a patch of dull lights. Ahead stretched the empty fields, the cliffs that overlooked the sea. The wind carried a strange metallic smell, sharp and wrong. The stranger slowed only when we reached a rusted fence. He dropped to one knee, scanning the ground. I caught my breath, lungs burning, and said, "You want to tell me what we're running from now?" He didn't look up. "Not running," he said. "Hunting." I almost laughed. "You call that hunting?" He stood, eyes narrowed toward the horizon. "If we wait, it finds us first. The signal tracks movement, heat, thought. But if we move with the pattern, if we follow the trail, we might find the source before it opens fully." "The source?" "The gate," he said. "Where it crosses into your world." The wind picked up, bending the grass flat. In the distance, a dog barked once, then nothing. The stillness after felt too clean, too exact, like even the sound of life had been edited out. We climbed the fence and crossed into the open fields. Every few yards, the ground changed, patches of earth melted smooth, as if burned by something not made for this planet. Some areas gleamed like glass, brittle and shining under the pale sky. He stopped beside one of those scars and knelt again. "It's spreading faster than I thought," he murmured. "What is?" "The conversion," he said. "The world bending to fit the frequency." He placed his palm flat on the glassy surface. Beneath his skin, faint threads of light shimmered, the same color as the mark on my wrist. The sight made my stomach twist. "You're connected to it, aren't you?" I said quietly. "That's why it's following you." He didn't answer. "Tell me the truth," I demanded. "What are you really?" His eyes lifted to mine, gray and endless. "I was made to destroy," he said. "But not by choice. I was built to end things that grew beyond control. Planets, signals, species. I followed orders until I stopped believing in them. When I escaped, they sent another signal after me. That's what you heard. That's what's coming." I tried to understand the weight of his words, but the logic of them slipped through like water. A living weapon. A runaway machine. A hunted soldier. It sounded impossible, yet I could feel the truth in his voice, heavy, human, tired. "So what happens if they find you?" I asked. He gave a hollow smile. "Then they erase me. And everything that ever touched me." My pulse jumped. "You mean me?" "Yes." The words landed like ice on my chest. We kept moving, cutting through a narrow strip of trees until the cliff opened before us. Below, the ocean stretched black and wide. The water looked too still, like glass, broken only by faint streaks of blue light shifting beneath the surface. He crouched near the edge, scanning the shoreline. "The fractures reach the sea," he said. "The collector will nest there." I followed his gaze and saw what he meant. Along the base of the cliffs, parts of the rock pulsed faintly, alive with the same eerie glow. It wasn't erosion or reflection. It was movement. And then I saw something worse. Footprints. Not ours. Pressed deep into the soft dirt, long and narrow, each one ending in sharp edges. The tracks glowed faintly, like heat pressed into the earth. They led from the cliff path to a small weather-beaten shed at the edge of the hill. The stranger's voice dropped. "Stay here." "Not a chance," I said, but my voice came out thinner than I meant. He walked toward the shed with slow, deliberate steps, every muscle ready. The door was barely hanging from its hinges, the wood around it split and blackened. The smell hit before he touched it, burnt ozone and something sour, something alive and wrong. He pushed the door open. Inside was darkness, deeper than it should have been. No shelves, no tools, just emptiness and a faint shimmer in the air, like heat waves in a desert. I stayed outside, but every instinct screamed to run. The mark on my wrist pulsed again, faster, sharper, and I saw, for an instant, the shed's shadow move even though nothing was inside. Then a sound came. Not from the shed, but all around us, a low mechanical hum that rose until it felt like it was inside my bones. The light on the ground trembled. The stranger spun, eyes wild. "It's here!" A shape unfolded from the air itself, tall, thin, barely solid, like smoke caught in lightning. It had no face, but where its head should have been, the air shimmered with my own reflection, stretched and wrong. I stumbled back. "What is that?" "The signal's body," he said. "The collector." The thing tilted its head, studying him, or maybe me. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. 1,000 whispers forming one sentence. "Return what is marked." The stranger's eyes flared with blue light. "You can't have it." The air screamed. The glassy ground cracked beneath us. The shed exploded outward, wood and dust flying. I hit the dirt hard, choking on smoke. When I looked up, the stranger was standing in the center of a halo of light, both hands raised. The creature moved closer, each step making the earth groan. "Run!" he shouted. But I didn't. Couldn't. My feet were rooted. My mark burned brighter, answering his. For one impossible moment, the creature stopped, like it was confused. The stranger looked at me, eyes fierce. "You're the key now. Don't let it touch you." Then the creature lunged. I turned and ran, down the hill, toward the cliffs, my breath tearing through my throat. Behind me came the sound of shattering glass and something that wasn't a scream but felt like one. When I reached the cliff's edge, the ocean below shimmered, not water anymore, but liquid light. And when I turned back, the stranger was gone. Only his coat remained, caught on a piece of metal, still warm, and my mark, now glowing steady and alive, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the sea. The sea was no longer a sea. It shimmered like a sheet of liquid glass, bending the moonlight into colors I'd never seen before, blue, silver, a thin gold that seemed to breathe. I stood at the edge, soaked in sweat, lungs on fire, staring at the place where the stranger had been swallowed by the light. For a long time, I couldn't move. The sound of the waves, if you could call them that, pulsed in sync with the mark on my wrist. The glow was stronger now, brighter, spreading like a slow infection under my skin. It didn't hurt. It throbbed, alive and patient, as if it were listening. I whispered to the empty air, "Where did you go?" The wind didn't answer. But the mark did, one sharp flash, and then a faint echo in my head. A voice. Distant. Fractured. Familiar. "Don't trust anyone." The voice cracked and vanished, leaving behind only silence. It was his voice, the stranger's. And it came from inside me. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and slipped on the glassy edge. My palm slammed against the cold surface, and the mark flared again. In that instant, I saw something that wasn't real, or maybe too real. A memory that wasn't mine. A vast city of metal towers rising from an ocean of stars. Creatures made of light walking through corridors that hummed with energy. The stranger, younger, sharper, wearing a uniform that shimmered like mercury, standing before a circle of beings that weren't quite human. And a voice, deep and final, "You will bring the signal home." Then it was gone. I was back on the cliff, trembling, breathing hard, clutching my wrist like it was the only thing keeping me anchored. That was when the light behind me shifted. I turned, and he was there. The stranger. Alive. Barely. His coat was torn, his skin glowing along the veins like molten silver. He moved with effort, every breath a battle. "You didn't run far enough," he said, voice low but steady. "I thought you were gone?" "Not yet." It tried to rewrite me. Failed. He looked down at my hand, at the light pulsing beneath it. "It bonded with you instead." I stepped back. "What does that mean?" "It means you're part of it now. Part of the signal. It will hunt you the way it hunted me." He collapsed to his knees, catching himself with one hand. I moved toward him, but he raised the other, a warning. His skin cracked where the light ran beneath it, like glass under pressure. "You need to understand," he said. "What's coming isn't a creature. It's a command." I frowned. "A command?" He nodded weakly. "A message, written by something that doesn't die. It builds bodies to carry its will, collectors, soldiers, wanderers like me. It doesn't know mercy. It only knows obedience." "Then why did you disobey it?" For the first time, he smiled, tired, but real. "Because I learned what pain was. And what it means to want something more than survival." The sky flickered. For a heartbeat, the stars blinked out and back again, like the whole world had lost signal. He looked up at it and winced. "It's accelerating. Once the conversion starts, everything, your oceans, your minds, your voices, will become part of the network." I shook my head. "No. There has to be a way to stop it." He met my eyes, and I saw guilt there. Deep, endless guilt. "There is. But you won't like it." "What is it?" He hesitated, then said softly, "You destroy the carrier." "Me?" The words hit harder than the storm wind. "No. There has to be another way." "There isn't," he said. "You're marked. The signal will trace it through both of us. If I die before it completes the pattern, it might break the link." "Might?" He gave a weak laugh. "I was never good at certainty." I stepped closer, shaking. "Then help me find another way. You said you followed the signal here. There must be something you left behind. A machine, a weapon, something." He looked at me for a long time, like weighing the measure of a human against the universe's cruelty. Then he nodded. "There's a transmitter. Buried in the cliffs. I used it to call for extraction before I realized I didn't want to go back." "Can it stop this?" "If I rewire it," he said. "Maybe. But it will need a power source strong enough to override the signal's core. Something that carries its imprint." I stared at him, the truth dawning like lightning. "You mean me?" "Yes," he whispered. "You." Before I could speak again, lights appeared in the distance. Not headlights, not flashlights, but steady, glowing spheres hovering just above the ground. The air around us hummed. The stranger stiffened. "Too late. They found us." "What are they?" "Collectors," he said. "Pieces of the signal, sent to bring us in." We ran again, down the slope toward a narrow cave mouth near the waterline. The light from the orbs followed, gliding silently, multiplying until the night behind us was alive with blue fire. Inside the cave, the air was colder. The walls shimmered faintly with veins of the same glass-like material that spread through the fields. The stranger moved quickly, pressing his hand against a rough wall until a hidden panel flickered open. Inside was the transmitter, a small metallic sphere, pulsing weakly like a dying star. He turned to me. "If I connect your mark to this, it'll burn the signal out. But it might burn you too." "Do it," I said. He hesitated. "You don't understand. Once it starts, it can't stop. You'll feel everything it feels." "Then we do it together," I said, surprising myself. "You said it bonded us, right? Then we end it together." For a moment, he just looked at me, the soldier, the alien, the runaway, and in his eyes I saw something almost like pride. He reached out, pressed his glowing hand over my wrist, and the world went white. Pain tore through me, sharp and endless, like light made into a blade. The mark on my skin blazed until I thought it would split me open. The transmitter screamed, not sound, but vibration, pure and raw. And through the light, through the agony, I heard the stranger's voice one last time. Hold on. It's almost over. But the last thing I saw before everything went dark was his face dissolving into light, and behind him, the shadows of the collectors breaking through the cave's mouth. Then there was nothing but the pulse. The same rhythm as before. Mine. His. The signals. All beating as one. The world returned as a whisper. No sound, no color, just the slow drip of something cold sliding across my cheek. When I opened my eyes, the cave was gone. The walls, the transmitter, the light, all swallowed by silence. I was lying on something smooth and hard. At first, I thought it was water, but when I pushed myself up, I heard the faint crackle of glass beneath my hands. The whole valley had turned to a frozen river of it, miles of mirrored surface, broken here and there by jagged shards that glittered in the pale dawn. The sea was gone. The cliffs were gone. The world was a reflection of itself. And I was still alive. The mark on my wrist was no longer a mark. It had spread, lines of light running up my arm like vines, pulsing gently as if they had a heartbeat of their own. Every pulse echoed faintly in my chest. My breath fogged in the air, but the air was too still to carry the fog away. He was beside me. The stranger. Or what was left of him. His body was half buried in the glass, the surface mold around him like cooling metal. His skin was gray, almost translucent, and the light that once glowed beneath it was dim, flickering. I crawled closer and touched his shoulder. It was cold, but not dead. He opened his eyes. "You survived," he rasped, the words thin and stretched. "Barely," I said. "What happened?" He tried to sit up but winced. The transmitter worked. For a moment. It burned out the signal here, but not everywhere. The surge reshaped everything it touched. I looked out across the endless plain of glass. It shimmered like an ocean caught between worlds. "It did this?" He nodded weakly. The frequency collapsed. The matter here remembered the sound of heat and became it. I didn't understand, but maybe I didn't need to. The proof was all around me. The air itself felt heavier, like it had forgotten how to move. "What about the collectors?" I asked. He turned his head, scanning the horizon. "Gone, for now. The signal retreats when it loses anchor. But it will return. It always does." I swallowed. "And you?" He laughed softly, more like a sigh. "Half of me is gone too. The part that belonged to them." I looked at the faint light in his chest, flickering slower each time. "You're dying." He didn't deny it. "Every moment I stay here, I unravel more. But you," he reached toward my arm, tracing the glowing veins. "You absorbed part of the signal when the transmitter failed. You carry the map now." "The map to what?" "To the origin." His voice shook, but his eyes burned with something fierce. "The first transmission. The root of everything." A gust of wind, finally, moved across the plain. It sang as it passed over the glass, a high, eerie hum that echoed through the valley. The stranger looked up, listening. "It's still alive in the air," he said. "The residue of the frequency. We can follow it." "Where?" He pointed west. "To the river's end. There's a pulse there. A gate trying to reopen." I hesitated. "You can barely stand." He smiled faintly. "Then you'll carry the mission." "I'm not you," I said. "I don't even know what this thing inside me is." He reached out, gripping my hand. "It's not a curse. It's memory." Every world the signal touched left traces in it. Pain, survival, wonder. It remembers. Then maybe it remembers how to stop. He nodded once, slow and deliberate. "Maybe." We began to walk. The sound of our steps echoed strangely, sharp and distant, like walking on hollow ice. The horizon shimmered with heat that wasn't heat, light that pulsed in rhythm with the marks under my skin. Hours passed, though the sun didn't move. Time itself felt stretched thin, elastic. The further we went, the more the glass changed. Beneath the surface, faint shapes appeared, frozen ripples, hands, faces half-formed in the crystal. "They're not real, are they?" I asked quietly. "They're echoes," he said. "Fragments of people caught in the signal's reach. When the world reshaped, their patterns stayed. I stopped. Patterns? He nodded. Everything leaves a pattern. Thought, sound, light, life, it's all the same. The signal doesn't kill. It converts. I stared down at the glass beneath my feet and saw, faintly, my own reflection blink back at me, except it didn't blink in time with me. Its eyes glowed faintly blue. I stepped back. It's still inside this. Yes, he said. The world is its mirror now. We reached a ridge where the glass river split into two paths, one leading deeper into the valley, the other curving toward the mountains. At the fork, the surface was cracked, and through the fracture, something pulsed from below, slow, rhythmic, alive. The stranger knelt beside it. This is the river's heart, he said. The last place the signal tried to anchor before we burned it out. He pressed his palm against the crack, and the light beneath flared. His whole body shuddered, the glow beneath his skin surging brighter for an instant before dimming again. What are you doing? I shouted. He looked up at me, eyes wide and burning with a strange peace. I'm giving you the rest. No. I reached for him, but it was too late. The light flooded up through the glass, through him, through me. My vision filled with blinding white, and in that white were shapes, worlds, stars, memories that weren't mine. I saw him as he once was, a soldier of light, walking through storms of energy that tore whole planets apart. I saw the first signals sent through the void, meant to preserve knowledge but corrupted by fear until it became hunger. I saw every version of him that had tried to stop it and failed. When the light faded, he was still kneeling, but the glow in his body was gone. Completely. Get up, I said, shaking him. Please. He smiled faintly, though his eyes were already empty. Now you know the way, he whispered. Then his body crumbled, slowly, silently, turning into fine glass dust that drifted away in the wind. The mark on my wrist burned hot, and a sound filled the air again, the pulse of the signal, stronger now, echoing from somewhere beyond the horizon. I stood alone in the river of glass, surrounded by reflections that all turned to look at me. And every single one of them whispered the same word, in my voice. Run! The reflections didn't vanish when I ran. They moved with me, hundreds of my faces rippling beneath the glass river, running in the same direction, their mouths forming words I couldn't hear. Each one glowed faintly blue, like the signal had stitched their souls beneath the surface. The mark on my wrist pulsed faster, in rhythm with something vast and unseen. It guided my feet even when the ground shifted under me, leading me toward the mountains that shimmered in the distance. They weren't made of rock anymore, they looked like crystal spears jutting into a frozen sky. The light inside them flickered like trapped lightning. I stopped once to breathe. The air tasted metallic, sharp as blood. My reflection stopped too, but it smiled when I didn't. I turned away from it and kept going. The wind carried faint voices, whispers that weren't quite sound, more like thoughts brushing against my own. I could almost understand them, words bending around sense. Find the beacon. Find the echo. Complete the loop. When I reached the foot of the mountains, I saw it, the old radio tower. Half buried, twisted, and yet still standing tall against the alien sky. Its red warning light blinked weakly, cutting through the mist like a heartbeat that refused to stop. It was the same tower from the stranger's story, the one that had once carried the signal. And maybe, if the universe had any cruel sense of humor, it was now the only thing left that could end it. I climbed. Each step sent echoes through the hollow glass beneath me. It groaned like something alive, remembering footsteps from another world. Halfway up, the tower began to hum, low and steady. My mark glowed brighter in answer. Don't do it. The voice came from behind me. I froze. It was the stranger. Or something that looked like him. His face shimmered slightly, like heat waves on metal, but his voice was the same, calm, patient, heavy with regret. You're not him, I said quietly. He tilted his head. No. But I remember him. I tightened my grip on the metal rung. What are you? A memory, he said. Left behind in the frequency when he died. The signal keeps what it destroys. Then why are you here? To help you finish what he started. He stepped closer, his feet not quite touching the glass. "You're the anchor now. The only living thread between worlds. The signal can't be erased without balance. You have to exchange something for its end." "Exchange?" He nodded. "Every transmission has two sides. Sender and receiver. To close the loop, one must replace the other." I swallowed hard. "You're saying I have to take its place?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. For a long moment, I stared up at the tower, the cables swaying in the wind, the rusted metal bones reaching for a sky that no longer belonged to Earth. "I don't even know how," I whispered. The stranger's ghost raised his hand and pointed at the mark. "It already knows. You're its chosen frequency. All you need to do is call." The word call vibrated through me like a physical thing. My skin tingled. The mark on my wrist began to glow so brightly I could see the veins through my arm like lit wires. "Once you call," the ghost said softly, "you won't come back. You'll burn into the signal and overwrite it. You'll become the silence between worlds." I laughed, a short, broken sound. "He said something like that once. That the signal hunts thought." He smiled faintly. "Now you understand why." The ghost began to fade, his edges dissolving into static. Before he vanished completely, he said, "Make it remember peace." Then he was gone. The tower's hum grew louder, vibrating through the glass ground. I climbed the rest of the way, my hands bleeding against cold metal. At the top, the sky opened, vast and alive with moving light. It wasn't stars anymore. It was code. Whole constellations rearranged themselves into patterns that pulsed like breathing. The mark on my wrist split open, light spilling out in thin, shining threads that reached toward the tower's core. I felt them connect, a surge of warmth, of understanding, of pain. In my head, I heard 1,000 voices speaking as one. "You are the new origin." I screamed, but there was no sound. My body wasn't mine anymore. My blood was light. My heartbeat was the rhythm of a machine older than galaxies. I could see through the tower, through the valley, through the planet itself, and beyond it, across distances where space bent like water. Worlds. Billions of them. Some bright and alive, some long silent. Each one touched by the same signal, each one with someone like me, chosen, unwilling, burning. The pain wasn't pain anymore. It was transformation. But beneath it, buried deep, another presence stirred. The signal itself. Cold, immense, infinite. It spoke not in words, but in intention. You cannot end what you are part of. I fought it. I thought of the stranger, of his trembling hands and the sorrow in his eyes. I thought of the faces frozen under the glass river. I thought of my reflections smiling when I couldn't. I gathered every memory, every fear, every human heartbeat I'd ever known and threw it back at the light. "Then remember me," I whispered. The mark exploded. The tower shuddered. The sky cracked open. Light poured through everything, sky, glass, bone, thought. The signal screamed, not in rage but in recognition. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't on the tower anymore. I stood in a field, grass, wind, real sunlight warming my face. The world looked new. Too new. The mark on my wrist was gone. I turned, and there, on the horizon, the old radio tower stood. Whole again. A single red light blinked at the top. Then I heard it. A voice in the wind, gentle and distant. His voice. "You did it. But the loop always leaves an echo." I looked down at my reflection in a puddle by my feet. It blinked back, but not with my eyes. They were glowing blue. The morning after the end of the world was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from peace, but the kind that comes from something holding its breath. The sun was soft, low, and golden, spilling across the wet grass like it didn't remember what this place used to be. The air carried no hum, no static. Just birds, real birds, testing their voices like they'd just learned how to sing again. For a moment, I thought it was over. That the signal was gone, that the nightmare had finally folded itself back into the void. I could almost believe it. Almost. But then the puddle beside me shimmered, and my reflection blinked twice when I hadn't. I looked away. The world had changed. The glass river was gone, the shattered cliffs restored. The ocean was back where it belonged, though it looked deeper somehow, darker, like it remembered the light that once burned inside it. The old radio tower stood tall on the hill, rusted but whole. A red beacon at its peak blinked steadily, a heartbeat I could feel more than hear. I started walking toward it. Every step brought a flicker of memory, flashes of what I'd seen when I connected to the signal. Worlds stitched together by sound, light, thought. A web of existence so vast and old it made human life look like a spark in a storm. And within it, the echoes of those who had fought before me, travelers, deserters, survivors, all swallowed by the same voice that had tried to claim me. Except now it was quiet. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. Halfway to the tower, I found something half buried in the soil, a fragment of glass, small and sharp, glowing faintly beneath the dirt. When I picked it up, the light faded. But as it touched my skin, the faintest vibration passed through me, like a whisper brushing against my bones. "Are you still there?" It was his voice, the stranger's, soft, faint, but unmistakable. I froze. The world seemed to tilt. "You're gone," I whispered. "You burned away." The voice was barely a sigh. "Not all of me. The signal keeps what it can't forget. You gave it something new. It remembers now." "What does it remember?" "You." I dropped the shard. It landed silently, sinking back into the earth like it was being swallowed. For a long time I just stood there, staring at my hands. The mark was gone, but faintly, beneath the skin, I could still see the veins flicker with a light that wasn't entirely human. When I reached the top of the hill, the radio tower loomed over me. It buzzed faintly, like a sleeping creature. The red light blinked in slow rhythm, too slow, too deliberate. Then I heard the static. It started as a hum at the base of the tower, rising until it became a soft chorus of voices. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. They weren't angry. They were searching. I pressed my palm against the cold metal. "It's over," I said. "You don't have to call anymore." But the static replied with something I hadn't expected. A word. "Why?" It wasn't one voice, but many, woven together like wind through wires. "Because it's done," I said, louder. "The loop is closed. The signal can rest." The hum deepened, and through it came a single clear tone, a note that vibrated in my bones, familiar and heartbreaking. It was the same sound the transmitter had made before the light consumed him. The same sound that carried through the air the night he died. And then I understood. The tower wasn't calling the signal back. It was replaying it, keeping it alive. A memorial. But memorials have echoes. As the light blinked above me, the air around the tower began to shimmer, faint outlines forming in the mist. The shapes of people. Dozens of them. Each one transparent, each one with the faint glow of the mark under their skin. They were all looking at me. Their faces were calm, not haunting but curious, as if trying to remember how to feel. The hum grew softer, almost musical. One of them stepped forward, her form flickering like light on water. "You ended it," she said. "But you didn't end us." "I tried," I whispered. She smiled faintly. "You can't end what remembers you. You gave the signal something it never had." "What's that?" "Choice." The figures began to fade one by one, dissolving into the morning air. As they vanished, the hum of the tower softened until it was only the wind moving through rusted metal. The red beacon blinked one final time, then went dark. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was alive. I sat at the base of the tower for hours, maybe longer, watching the sun climb high and the world find itself again. People would wake soon. They'd see the rivers, the grass, the sea, all back where they belonged, and they wouldn't know what had been lost. Maybe they'd feel something they couldn't explain. A faint hum when they turned on the radio. A voice in the white noise of a storm. And maybe that was enough. As the day faded into night again, I stayed there, staring at the darkened tower. The sky was clear, the stars sharp and bright. Then, on the horizon, a flicker. Blue. A faint pulse, too rhythmic to be random, too alive to be a star. It blinked once. Twice. Then stopped. I smiled, not in fear, but in understanding. The signal hadn't died. It had changed. Maybe it was learning what it meant to be alive. Maybe it was learning what it meant to stop running. Or maybe, somewhere beyond the glass sky, he was still out there, the stranger, watching, waiting, keeping the silence alive until someone else found the courage to open the door. The wind brushed my face, soft and human. I whispered into it, "If you're still listening, I forgive you." A second later, the radio tower clicked once, faint, gentle, like a heartbeat answering mine. And then came his voice, carried through the wires, soft and warm as memory. "So do I." The world exhaled. The stars blinked. And for the first time since the knock on my door, the night felt safe again.